Hey, I'm Kevin with another video. So I want to say that with this content on this channel, and especially the last video prior to this one, I'm attempting some very strong insights and statements, but I'm also referencing personal experience. So like one is that the experience of George Floyd losing him in the time of the pandemic. Um, that was just, that's just it lends into what I'm trying to convey with the message, but also it's a little bit of testimony because I live within the same municipal district in the same metro area is where the George Floyd incident happened. So it's actually a little bit of actual testimony, and it's a reference for teach to illustrate a point, but it's actual lived experience and testimony. And I was referencing some of my own experience for coming into the pandemic and what would be the George Floyd experience, but then also the George Floyd experience itself. I was present for that to take place, not where it happened or necessarily there about at that moment, but that's a lot of where I had existed, going by there a lot and not residing probably less than probably about at that time I was probably no more uh, than 5 miles away. A significantly different area or municipality or district, because you can have a lot where I reside. A lot can change from just a few blocks over. You can have a lot of a different neighborhood, a lot of different dynamics, and also the dynamics as you would pass somewhere, the real history and goings on somewhere are not as you would appreciate just driving through. If only the walls could talk in a city, that when you drive through a place and you see different buildings, if those walls could actually talk to you about what has existed there, you'd have a different sensation about where you are at a particular moment. But what I meant to say, and I didn't mean to say by any means that that the state was justified in what they did to George Floyd. Hell no. Or that the state application of violence is just and justified. Hell no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the pretext and pretense and the format of applying uh force, deadly force, consequential force, up to and including hellfire, whether that's for an individual or a country or a nation or a people, whatnot. It's along the lines of self-righteousness and justification that is justice. Anything but justice, but somebody that is convoluted enough and chauvinistic enough to believe their own nonsense as justice enough to be confident about it and arrogant about it and pass it off onto consequences of life and death on other people is what I'm referring to. So what I'm saying is that a lot of times when very significant consequences are meted out to a person or a people, whether that be by above ground, recognized, sanctioned power that is state power, which is still de facto to my taste, as long as it's on land that's been confiscated and usurped. In another video, I was looking for that word, usurped. So the land that we're upon in the United States has been usurped from its true members, which are itself, largely speaking, who have been disfranchised and displaced to a large degree at the present point. Yet they still suffer injustice, those people, and the plants and animals, which are also those people, and the land also, which is also the people, and the animals, which is the people, are still suffering. So the deers, they hunt deers for sport all around the Midwest. Like it's actually unfathomable how daunting that would be to be a deer, because you already have to run from lion, tigers, and bears. But now you got elderly people, you got adults, you got their kids, all getting their license to go out and hunt and blow things down in the middle of nature. That's a lot of people hunting for sport. Crazy. But you could say that I personally, having lived in the United States and having some exposure to indigenous people, but still peripherally speaking, but with some of my history from Africa, as my father's taught me about the relationship of our people to the cattle, at least in some of the things. My father knows more about animals than a lot of people would be coming from Africa. Like, he could actually tell you eccentricities and personality things about wild lions. Like, my dad would tell me that the strong lion, the roaring lion, is not what you have to worry about. What you have to worry about is an old lion, an old, tired, haggard lion that can't keep up anymore. That's the one that's going to come and pick off a human being when they have no other recourse, or pick off some livestock. My dad would understand things like that about nature. He taught me a lot of cool stuff about animals from the Africa side. That's like the outdoor, the country boys of Africa is what my dad was. My dad was an Africa country boy growing up, and he could do crazy stuff similar to like what people would do. Like he can slaughter and clean an animal with like by himself, like with a knife, and cook it as delicious. So that's some of his background. But I understand that, to me, the deer are the indigenous people. The buffalo had been, and what remain of them are the indigenous people. The indigenous people are the indigenous people. The plants and animal are the indigenous people. I had a friend who was native when I was working at a pizza store, and one time he asked me, like, "Do you think animals go to heaven?" That was a way deeper question than I appreciate. It was deep then, but not how deep. He said, "Do you think animals go to heaven?" And I said, "Yeah, I think they do." He said, "Well, some people think they don't. Why would they not go to heaven? Animals take care of us. Animals protect us." He's right about that, but animals also are us. So the animals are still suffering where we're at. But what I wanted to say is that when things are applied like deadly force, it's usually upon justification. But then you would have like the above ground sanctioned, what it understands itself as sanctioned force, that is the state, law enforcement, military, what have you, paramilitary, things we don't know about, um, is the above ground. But then you have the below ground, which would be like your counterculture, your subculture, your criminal class, for lack of a better word. And they're not more or less righteous than the above ground. The criminals are not necessarily outright in itself. They're not necessarily more or less harmful to an environment than the above ground or themselves. What they are is a check and a balance mechanism, an actual buoyancy between the above ground and the below ground. No different than if you were at a job setting. I read in a book, I can't recall what book that is, but it said that you will always have an above ground present. Like you go to a web page and you look at you look at the cadre, the leadership there. I was at a driving role last year, and there was like I was like spending some time like in a passing, like in a hallway, practicing music, and there was like a picture, a bust that's like the face of all like the ranking members at that place, like the owners, the vice president, this and that, the leadership, the mechanic, the head mechanics, in that. And then I was like, yeah, there go the mugshots, there go all the usual suspects. I was just laughing like that. None of those people had been egregious to me. They had all been decent and fair to me. But I was just joking like that. He's like, yeah, but there's a couple of them, man. I don't know, man. I don't like the way they do certain things, and I feel a way about that. That's actually the underground de facto power structure that I was talking to, a ranking member that I was talking to, because I had conversations with him in the past when I wore this my African medallion that I wear a lot, the African Solidarity medallion, and he was like he engaged me with that on the pretext of that, and we had a conversation. But while I was talking to him, some people, like, actually people who are like very like in relationships with some of the leadership there, who are actually family members of some of the leadership there, they were like, yeah, man, hey, man, listen to that man. He knows what he's talking about, man. That's good people right there, man. People were having respect for me, that he would actually engage me that directly upon things of like spirituality, is what he was referencing. And he was actually referencing me to come out of my comfort zone and stop being a closeted spiritual person, which I had been more of a zealous. Now, I'd never really associated with spirituality, but I had been zealous about my interest in spirituality. And he was saying that you always have to be ready to be about what you're about. He said that to me, and I needed to hear that. But it's just the fact that he actually was having rank there, the undisclosed and not sanctioned rank, but he was actually a veteran, and he had pull there. That's an example of the contrast and the buoyancy. It's a check, and that you need that. You actually need the competency and the oversight of the people who don't have the titles, but they have the know-how and the pull. Then you have the people with the titles that get to appear on the website, and they get to do all the things that are about having your face blasted places for their purpose. But the actual power, and you could even say some of the ownership, is from the below board, because they all have a shared interest in things working. But there needs to be that buoyancy. But it's similar between the cops and the robbers, the criminal classes, that they're not more or less righteous than one another. But when things are applied from either side of that, as violence goes, it's upon justification, self-righteousness.